It's a natural part of life to struggle. Acknowledging that, admitting that can be really important in just knowing that, like, it's not always about growth in terms of like thriving. Sometimes it's surviving, sometimes it's getting through those times. And really, no matter where that struggle stems from, having a plan of how to support yourself through that can help lift some of the weight of it all.
Welcome to Worthy Mother Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Hardy, a mom of two on a mission to help moms everywhere feel less alone. This is not a parenting podcast. Instead, it's a space for pushing back against societal expectations of perfection and embracing self-compassion in your motherhood journey. Let's get into it.
I'm going to be completely honest with you right now. I am usually recording these episodes a few weeks out at least, and really making sure we are prepped and ready to go for great content. But I have had a lot going on in my personal life, and I have just not really been able to get myself to sit down and record the planned solo episode for this week. I am struggling with creativity. My brain power is just so taken up right now by things that are going on. And I'm also struggling a bit with showing up in motherhood, to be honest. It feels kind of disingenuous to record something on a topic pretending that everything is fine in my life when it really isn't right now. There's a lot going on. So when I sat down to finally record, it's time to get this episode recorded and out, I came up with a kind of last minute episode idea that I think is something that I need right now. It's something that's going to be beneficial to me in my life. And I figure that there may be some of you out there listening who might also need this right now too. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you how to support yourself through seasons of struggle. Because the truth of the matter is that we all struggle sometimes. There are so many factors in life that can kind of throw us, especially when we're mothers, right? There's our mental health, there are our relationships, whether that's with our significant others, with our kids, with our families, friends. There are challenges that our kids are going through. There are financial struggles. There might be loss and the grief that comes along with that. It's a natural part of life to struggle. Acknowledging that, admitting that can be really important in just knowing that, like, it's not always about growth in terms of like thriving. Sometimes it's surviving. Sometimes it's getting through those times. And really, no matter where that struggle stems from, having a plan of how to support yourself through that can help lift some of the weight of it all. So I'm not going to get into what's going on in my personal life right now, but we will talk about how I am navigating the support that I need for myself. I'm going to be sharing 6 different ways or, strategies for support. These are things that we want to be mindful of when we are struggling and even before we're struggling, right? When we're in those periods of time where things are going well, we want to make sure we have the system set up to be able to support ourselves in these ways. But then when we are struggling, like if you are in a period of struggle right now, thinking about how you can incorporate these supports into your life can be really helpful. So first up is our relationships. Our support systems are so crucial. We are human beings. We need to be connected to other human beings. And I know for me, when I'm struggling, I oftentimes feel this like need to pull in, and that can be beneficial in a lot of ways, right? There can be a lot of reflection that happens there, but it is so, so important, so vital that we are also connecting outward. So whether that is your partner you're relying on, whether that is your family that you're relying on, whether that's the friends that you know that you can go to that are a safe space for you, honestly, just having somebody to text in those moments where things are kind of spiraling. If you can call a friend, if you can raise your hand and say, hey, I need help. I need support right now. I need to talk through this. I need somebody to tell me it's going to be okay. I need to just go get a coffee with you and laugh about something. Whatever it is, having those connections, having that support is vital. Sometimes when we're just kind of getting by in life, we forget how important those relationships are. I know that that's something that I hear from a lot of moms, that there can be so much isolation that comes from being a mom and having so much of your time and energy dedicated towards your children. And so really being aware of that and being cognizant that we want to have those relationships. We want to be pouring into those relationships in whatever capacity we can. Because when we are in those seasons of struggle, having people to turn to is really important. I know for me right now, having friends who are moms, I have one friend in particular who, when things are kind of chaotic, I feel like I can text her and say, hey, I am super dysregulated and struggling with the kids right now. And she can be a support for me in that, validating my experience, telling me it's okay, and even giving me strategies in the moment of like how I can navigate that. So relationships are a huge part of making sure that we have the support we need when we are struggling. But then there's the other side of things. When we are struggling, it can also be very important to have time alone, time to ourselves to kind of process what's going on, to cool down when, there's so much going on, we might be very dysregulated. And if we have time to ourselves to like breathe, cool down, it can really help us kind of reset and regulate. There are so many ways we can spend time alone. And really, when you're in seasons of struggle, depending on what you're struggling with, all of these might be good at different points, right? It's really knowing what you need in the moment. But whether you are journaling, really processing things, getting it out, that is something that I am striving to be more intentional about doing. I've kind of fallen off the journaling wagon and want to get back on because I know for me, having all the thoughts in my head can be really just a lot. And so getting it down on paper, processing it is important, and being intentional about doing that has to happen for me to actually sit down and do it. You can also read if you want a little escape. I mean, that's a great way to just kind of pull your mind out of everything that's going on. Sometimes we need that actual escape from things to kind of allow ourselves the time to kind of rest and find joy in something too, right? Listening to music, that's a huge one for me. I think I've shared this before on the podcast, but I'm one of those people who has a playlist for like sad music to cry to. Got a lot of Taylor Swift on there right now, but just being able to use music to check into different parts of your emotions. Sometimes we feel like we need to let it all out, but it's really hard to do that because we've been trying to keep it all together. And so turning on some sad songs and crying, that's great. Or just listening to music that brings you joy, right? Whatever you need in that moment. And then it can be really important also to just get quiet. Again, there's so much going on in our lives. And when we are in those seasons of struggle where things are extra challenging, we sometimes need to build in that extra space to just exist. And that can be really uncomfortable. I know it can be really uncomfortable for me. A lot of times, if I'm trying to just be quiet, I have to like lay down on the couch and physically cover my eyes just to like allow myself to check out. And again, it can be uncomfortable. So a lot of times that's not for like long periods of time. It's literally for 2 minutes being able to just sit in the quietness, but it can be really valuable and really important. So if you're going through a lot right now, I recommend trying that. The third way that I have that we can support ourselves through seasons of struggle is to turn to therapy and or coaching, depending on what it is you're struggling with. For me personally, I was in therapy, doing a lot of therapy in more of the postpartum season after my second son was born. And I haven't been in therapy. I haven't really needed it. I haven't really had the time for it. There's lots of reasons why I wasn't in therapy for a while. But because I'm kind of in this stage now where I'm like, okay, I really do need the extra support right now, I am finding a therapist that's going to become a regular part of my weekly routine, right? And maybe that's something I will then continue doing on after, things are starting to settle. Really, therapy, I think, is a great tool for anyone in any season, no matter if you're thriving or not. But really, when we do have those seasons where it's like, this is a lot going on right now, and we don't necessarily have so much space to process, having like a dedicated hour each week to let it all out and talk through it with somebody in a way that's really intentional can be super, super helpful in getting that support that you need and being able to then like learn tools and take advice and seek support in other areas of your life too, right? It can kind of cause a ripple effect that's really powerful. It's not just that hour in therapy, it's all that can come from that. If it's like a specific issue that you're dealing with, working with a coach too, to kind of come out of that space of struggle can be incredibly helpful. So I think therapists and coaches, they both can have such a role in supporting us through seasons of struggles, just depending on what it is that you need, what kind of healing or growth journey you're on. Number 4 on my list as a way to support yourself through seasons of struggles is to get outside. And I'm not even talking about going out into nature, right? Like, yes, nature is healing and there's so much beauty in stepping out and going, being with the trees. But like literally just stepping outside of your house and breathing in fresh air, I have found such relief in just going outside when I'm, in the depths of anxiety. Sometimes stepping outside is all I need to just breathe. And I'll be completely honest, when I am struggling, when I'm in moments of deep anxiety, I tend to kind of close down and not want to get up off the couch. And so it's not always easy for me to like go outside. We have a little patio at our house, and taking the kids out there sometimes feels like too much. But I find that usually when I do it, it pays off. And so I just want to say, like, that might not be easy to do. It might not feel easy to do, but it's something that's available to us. And it actually might just help in a big way in those moments that are kind of extremely elevated in the stress that we're feeling. The next way that I believe we can support ourselves through seasons of struggling is to try to have fun with our kids. And this one can be hard. It can be actually really challenging to enjoy the moment when you are so in your head with the struggle that you're in. Mindfulness comes into play here. And if you're having a hard time being mindful and present in the moment, actually having fun with your kids might be super hard. And so I want to just completely validate that and say, like, there's reasons for that. Sometimes we can't just cope our way out of the struggle. But if you figure out how to lean into the fun with them, do something together that maybe you both enjoy and that takes your concentration away. I know one thing that I really like doing with my kids, and I've been doing a lot of recently, is these art videos that I found on YouTube. It's a man and his family. They're called Art for Kids Hub, and he does directed draws with his kids. And so it's something that me as an adult, like I really enjoy, and my kids also really enjoy it. It's super fun. We get to like make art together. And it takes enough of my concentration to like follow the step-by-step directions that he's doing in the drawings, where I can kind of take my mind off of whatever's going on. Even if it's not like, oh, I'm just deciding to have fun. It's more of I'm concentrating on this task. But that's been really helpful for me when I am having a hard time like leaning into the fun with my kids. Whatever it is that you're doing, a dance party, like getting up and moving your body to music and kind of tuning into the music, can it be another way to do that, right? Like where you have something else to focus on outside of yourself that's not just like, oh, I'm trying to have fun right now. Whatever it is, if you can find something to do with your kids and have fun doing it, taking your mind off whatever's going on, it can be really helpful. And sometimes that's even just going to our kids for a big hug or for snuggles, watch a movie and snuggle. Sometimes they can actually like co-regulate with us. They can bring us down just by being there. It's not that we always want to turn to our kids for emotional help, right? Like that's not their job, but there's ways that we can use them to kind of help us in a way just by being with them. All of those strategies for supporting yourself, obviously, there's a huge range there. They're really important. And they're things that we all can turn to in those seasons of struggle to different degrees, right? But I think this last one here is probably the most important on the list. And I talk about this all the time here on Worthy Mother podcast, but it's giving yourself lots of grace. It's okay if you are not on the top of your game in a season of struggle. It's okay if you are reverting back to old patterns and you're just thinking, why can't I just call my friend? If only I could get up and go for a walk. If only I could do the things I need to do for support. If it was just that easy, you would just do it, right? And so knowing that it's okay if you're not completely able to bring yourself out of those like really emotional moments, just like snapping a finger and getting the support. Life is not linear. Life is not just coasting, right? There are times where things are more challenging. There are situations in life that can bring up a lot of struggle. And to be able to have grace with yourself and to be able to acknowledge that the expectations that we are held to aren't necessarily sustainable. They're not necessarily that important either. It's okay if you are just trying to survive sometimes. I don't think we hear that enough. But there's nothing wrong with you if the goal is not necessarily right now to thrive, but really just to get through the day. When I was in therapy after having my second son and really struggling with a lot of anxiety and different issues that came about because of that, my therapist had said to me, if you got up and kept the kids safe and got them fed, like that's worth celebrating on a day where that's all you could do. And if you are feeling like that in any way, if you are having a hard time just doing the bare minimum, celebrate the bare minimum. Acknowledge that you did what was needed of you. And in this moment, that might just be enough. Really, what I want to leave you with is that if you are in a season of struggle right now, for whatever reason, know that you are not alone. You are strong. You will be okay. But if you aren't right now, you're still worthy. Thank you for being here. If this episode resonated with you in any way, it might just resonate with another mom in your life. There might be somebody else who needs to hear this right now, so send it along. That's it for this week. We will be back next week with another guest episode. You are worthy, mama.